My name is Scott Hooks. This is my X-treme makeover assignment for NU 713, Organizational and Systems Leadership class. We will be talking about miscommunication in the workplace with a personal example of miscommunication. We will also be discussing a recent cafeteria conversation of mine, reflect on that conversation, and talk about how we can make positive changes in those conversations, thereby changing our storylines. Learning outcomes include miscommunication, influences that we have, small talk, and reflection. A recent miscommunication: during a shift report, I informed the night shift nurse that the patient was to receive warm water enemas every 8 hours or until the return was clear for a colonoscopy the following day. I put the order in, so I thought, and left for the night. When I returned to work the next morning, the patient had not received any of the ordered enemas. Apparently, I had not made the importance of those enemas clear. I told the nurse what was happening the next day and why we were doing them, rather than a traditional colon cleanse, but I believe I did not make it known that if the patient was not clear enough, then the procedure would be a waste of time and resources because the doctor wouldn't be able to see anything. Another problem was that this order for the enemas that I thought I had put in the computer wasn't showing. So the nurse didn't want to give an enema based on a verbal report without a written order. The patient went for the procedure and was not cleaned out enough, so it was a waste of time and resources, along with putting the patient through a procedure that had no positive results. Communication goes farther than just telling someone something in a report or conversation. This is an example of verbal miscommunication and an electronic miscommunication. I should have ensured that she had understood my verbal report, along with verifying that the electronic record of the order was in. This would have prevented the miscommunication between the two shifts and helped the patient at the same time. In this slide, we are asked to talk about a recent lunchtime conversation and reflect on what it tells us about our organizations. Most conversations that are carried on during our lunch break, when we have time to sit down and eat together, are about family and hobbies during off time. Sometimes we talk politics, patient care, or staffing shortages. My last lunchtime conversation had to do with family and camping. We talked about the age of our children and how much that my family loved to camp, and how the person with me had never been but would like to try it sometime. We talked about how much we love to kayak and hike, which is something that a lot of us in the MICU like to do. We also discussed the kind of activities our kids are involved in at school, such as soccer and band. There have been a few times when we were understaffed that negativity shows during our lunchtime conversation, but it's usually when we are 2 to 3 hours late going to lunch. Conversations about family and activities outside of work are the theme when I'm able to eat lunch with my colleagues. I believe it shows that not only the people I work with, but also the culture of my department is a very caring and family-oriented department. Even when discussions are geared toward politics, we are able to carry on conversation that has an open discussion, and even though we may disagree, we still have a genuine trust and passion for each other. The patterns in my department seem to be patterns of compassion. It shows in conversation in the nurses' lounge and in conversations with patient families, from our director to fellow nurses. Casual conversations seem to take a turn toward each other and becoming a work family as opposed to just co-workers. Everyone likes to know how each other's families are doing, what we did during our off time, and as nurses, we all like to talk about food and our favorite places to eat outside of work, and the places that we love that deliver to the hospital. Interactions at work are generally pleasurable. Most people I work with are pretty happy in the ICU, and the interactions show how much we care for one another. It is a caring atmosphere of teamwork and education. More experienced nurses step up and help nurses that need help for things that they don't have much experience in. They try to teach the younger nurses rather than belittle them and trying to make them feel inferior. I believe as nurses, we have learned to speak professionally. We meet so many different people from different cultures and religions that we are able to be aware of what we say and when we say it. What I do see is that cafeteria conversations that turn negative out of frustration. Those frustrations usually stem from being short-staffed, causing very late lunches. It's those times that make it hard for us to control the way we talk. As nurses, I believe that we have also learned to be observant to patient care, but not always gestures or body movement. Sometimes, especially when we haven't eaten, we are absent in our conversations with our coworkers. Conversations without observance of gestures or facial expressions doesn't give us the substance of those conversations. I believe this has happened to all of us, including me, during recent lunch conversations. Ways of changing the story depend on the type of conversation. As you can see, my last conversation was very positive. We talked about our families and hobbies. We discussed how much we love to camp, hike, and kayak. These seem to be a part of a lot of our conversations, especially during spring and summer. Ways to change the story for positive conversations such as these are for us to be extra attentive to the conversation and read between the lines of what is being said. We must see the expressions and gestures being made to fully understand the conversation. On the other hand, conversations can turn negative very quickly. We should always pay attention to the direction our conversations are headed, being mindful to whether or not they are positive or negative. As nurse leaders, we should always try to set a positive tone when we are speaking. It should be up to us to lead cafe conversations into directions that are positive. There is almost always good to be found in every situation, and when things start turning negative, it can create a spiral that is hard to come out of. We should always point out the positives in situations that most people get frustrated about. It's hard sometimes, but that's what makes us leaders and not followers. Here are my references. Thank you.